Alright guys, hi. Um, Today I'm going to show you how to use some of the selection tools in Photoshop. You're all going to practice on one photograph um, just to get the hang of this, and then you'll be able to start using it on your composite image. So the first thing we need to do is get to our file that we're going to be using. So you're going to, in Photoshop, if you've got Photoshop open, you can go to File, Open, go to that digital art folder, Project Files, Selection Tutorials, and then the Selection Basics image. Okay, it should look like this. Click Open. Okay. I really suggest you have your tablet out to do this. Try not to do this with a mouse. Again, you want to get used to using those tablets. They're a lot more versatile than the mouse is. They give you a lot more control. They have a little bit of a learning curve. It takes a little practice to get used to them, but they are really helpful. Okay, so let's talk about selections. What do selections do and how can we use them? What a selection does is it allows you to choose an area of your image and then work with it in all kinds of different ways. But you need to know how to use the selection tools. So let's just go through them. The selection tools are going to be these top three tools right here. And this is what's called the marquee tool. Now if I click and hold, I can get different shapes. Okay, so I'm just going to start with the rectangular marquee, and that just allows me to select rectangles, or if I hold the shift key, I'll get squares. Okay, so you get a perfect square if you use the marquee tool while holding the shift key. All right, so let's talk about what you do with a selection. Once I've made my selection, I can kind of drag it around. I'm going to go ahead and select this Premier Motel sign back here. So what can I do with selections? First of all, I can cut. So I can go up here to Edit, Cut. Oh, I can remove things. And now if I went to a new file, I'm just going to open up a new one here. I can paste it. Okay, so you can cut things from one image and paste them into another. I can paste it somewhere else in the image. So let me back up here. If I take this and if I, rather than cutting, if I copy, and then I can paste that. Okay, so it shows up on a new layer. There it is, and then I can move it around and put it somewhere else if I want to. It doesn't really, I don't need to for this image, but it allows you to cut and paste things. Okay, so that's the marquee tool. There's also the elliptical marquee tool, okay, which makes ovals or an ellipse. And again, if you hold that shift key, you get a circle. And if you overlap two selections, they become one. Okay, so if you need to create multiple selections, you can do that. There's also the single row marquee, which this is just selecting a single row of pixels across my image. Okay, and then there's a single column marquee. We won't use those very much. You may use this one and this one occasionally. Okay, the next tool is the lasso tool. Okay, and I'm going to go through all three of these lassos. So the lasso tool is if you want to freehand a shape, that's how you would use the lasso tool. So if I want to freehand cut out this letter O, I'm just going to draw it. Okay, I'm using my tablet again, and it gives me this outline. This, by the way, this is called the dancing ants. Okay, and then I can do all the same stuff. I can copy and paste. I can cut and paste. The other thing that's nice about selections is, let's say I need to make some edits, but I know that I'm not as careful as I could be, and I only want to edit this one section. Well, if I turn my paintbrush on, I'm going to turn my sides of my brush up. See how it only stays where my selection is? Okay, so selections allow you to just paint or draw or do whatever your editing is in just one area. Okay? Okay, so that was the lasso tool. That's just sort of the freehand, just drawing a shape. There's also the polygonal lasso, which makes polygons. So if I click it just makes straight lines. Okay? And I just have to make sure that when I am done creating my shape, I go back to the beginning and see that little circle that pops up? That means the shape is closed. Okay? So if I need to select something that is a straight object, it's only made up of straight lines, like maybe the side of this building, I can cut that, and then I can, cut, okay, and then I can paste. All right, so that is the polygonal lasso. So if you're cutting out something that's just straight, you can use that, okay? All right, let me go back here. All right. I have an extra layer from my cutting and pasting. Every time you paste, it adds it to a new layer. Okay. Up next is the magnetic lasso. This one's pretty cool. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to do this motel sign over here. So let me zoom in. Okay. The magnetic lasso. So I can click with the magnetic lasso, and if I kind of move out here, you can see that the little string is kind of finding that edge for me. Now I can say, okay, I really know I need to have a anchor right here, so I'm going to click that one. So you can give it clicks, but it will also just kind of find the edge for you. So if you have something fairly complex and you want to use this to do your selection, you can certainly use that magnetic lasso. All right. I'm not going to do this whole thing, but I go back to the beginning, close it up, and there is my selection. So that's the magnetic lasso. Next, this is the quick selection tool. Let me zoom back out. The quick selection tool is another cool device. I'm going to use this light pole as my example this time. So with the quick selection tool, this kind of works. You can see it has a little paintbrush on the icon. It kind of works like a paintbrush. And I can use it to, if I just click and hold and start painting, Photoshop tries to figure it out for me, and it starts selecting. Okay, so I want to select just this light pole. Okay, now you'll notice Photoshop has made some mistakes. Okay, I don't want this, and I don't want this, and I want to add in this light pole. So you can see on my cursor that there's a little plus sign. So as long as that is showing, you can add to your selection. Okay? But I don't want this section right here. And you have to remember that Photoshop is just kind of guessing. It's doing its best to figure out, but Photoshop isn't a human being, so it doesn't know a light pole from a door. So you have to tell it what you want. Now, if I want to remove something from my selection, I hold the Alt Option key, and you can see my cursor has a little minus sign now. So if I turn that on and off, you can see it. Okay, so if it has the minus sign while you're holding the Option key on your keyboard, it will subtract from the selection. Now, the quick selection tool is, now it's trying to figure out what I want. I said I don't want this, and so it kind of jumped into the middle here. If I go back and if I add that back in, it's trying to figure out where that edge is. So the more information I give it going back and forth, the smarter it will get at selecting my object. Okay, and I want to subtract this blue area, and that one it did pretty quick because this blue is a lot different than this light pole. So that's the quick selection tool. And then last one is the magic wand. Now the magic wand just kind of uses color information to figure out what you want. So if I start selecting this orange area here, I'm just clicking, okay? And it's just using the information about the color to kind of figure it out on its own. If I hold the Shift key, I can add to my my magic wand selection, and it's going to try to figure it out for me. Okay, so I'm just holding the Shift key. You see the little plus sign next to my magic wand there, and I can keep clicking until it selects what I want. And these tools are great. They can be a little frustrating sometimes because you know what you want, but Photoshop doesn't know what you want. So sometimes it can be a little frustrating to be like, Photoshop, why aren't you getting it? So you can always combine things. So if I'm selecting something and Photoshop is just not getting it, it just doesn't understand what I want, I can go back to another selection tool and I can add in a section if I want to, and it will add it on. So you can combine your selection tools. And then a couple things just to know what you're doing. If you need to deselect an area, like I selected this and now I need to get rid of the selection. If you hit Command D, it will drop the dancing ant. So if you need to start over or you just need to, you're done with your selection, you can do that. If you make a selection and you need to go back to it, you can reselect as long as you haven't done any other selecting in between. You can save selections. So let's say I'm working on this, but the class ends and I need to come back to it tomorrow, or I need to come back to it in the future. So I can take this and save my selection. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it Neon. And click OK. And now if I had to, if I closed this, let's deselect. All right, so I need to bring my selection back, so I can go to, I can go in here, I can load selection. I'm going to click the channel, find the one that says Neon, click OK, and it comes back. So that's that selection tool. So those are the different selection tools, and you'll be able to use them on your composite image. And then you can watch the next video on how to start building your composite image.